Welcome to the Brothers in Influence podcast, where we stand to encourage, inspire, and add value in the areas of life, leadership, and community. I'm your host, Ian Williams.
And I'm Sherrod the Dead.
And I'm Shante Price, and together we are the Brothers.
And we are privileged to bring you a special guest who's going to bring the influence. Let's get it.
That's right. In the building for season 3. I got a guy here. What can I say? A friend, a brother, a mentor. Dom Davis is in the building, and he's going to bring the influence today. But before we let him do his thing, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my brother. Dom was born and raised on the west side of Detroit. He's a blessed man, to have a father and a mother to raise him, right? He had the best of both worlds, being raised by his mother and father. He's the youngest of 3 boys, and his brothers are 4 years older than him, and they're actually twins, right? And I can just imagine when you have not somebody that's older than you, but then twins. Oh man, I know you got some stories, brother. Dom, he was exposed to a lot of things growing up, but he had good role models in his brothers, his father, to keep him on a straight and narrow path. He said he believes that he has his fair share of bad judgment calls, right? He said he says to us he's not perfect. He's made some mistakes, just like everybody else made mistakes, right? But he made it through. Dom is a husband and a father of 2 beautiful children. He's a small business owner, multiple businesses. Let me throw that out too. And he works a full-time job at Assurance. So he's remote at his I would say 9 to 5.
Yep.
Which those businesses is going to work him out of that. Dom came to Grand Rapids in 2006 after he graduated. He spent 3.5 years at Aquinas College, where he says he partied, but he made it, right? He had a little fun along the way, but he made it, right? He even though he had some fun, he says that he did what he had to do, right? And I'm pretty sure that that's attributed to his mother and father, right? Oh, yeah. He didn't forget where he came from. He came back home and I'm sorry. 2009 he moved to Toledo with his brother to finish school at Lourdes University. He moved back to Grand Rapids 2016. Once he realized his girlfriend at the time, which is currently his wife, was pregnant with his first child, he dropped everything and he was doing and building and came straight to Grand Rapids to start over from scratch, right? 2022, and this is where he is to this day, right? Shout out to Dom. I met Dom through a fatherhood group, and it's been awesome knowing this brother, and I'm glad he's here today to share some of his truth. So first question I got to ask you, Dom. So when you think of the term brothers and influence, what do you think of?
It's the more and more that I watch the episode, just more of a fellowship and mentorship above a podcast, right? And then just kind of just seeing the different subjects and points you guys touch base on. It more so becomes that like validation, right? Like when you're as a black man and hearing other successful, positive black men speak, you have this time where you're thinking like, am I doing this the right way? Am I doing that the right way? And then you start listening to this podcast and you're just like, man, like, yeah, that's valid. Like I feel just like that. And or it shows you, different aspects that you weren't thinking before. So I think of, a mentorship podcast, a fellowship podcast, and a brotherhood when I think of brothers of influence.
Awesome. It's funny that I met my other brothers, Ian and Sherrod, after meeting you guys, that group, this fatherhood group, and it was just amazing to me how everything just rolled right over into the relationship that I have with them now, which produced this podcast. And we meet once a week, and it seemed like we have a podcast every time we meet, right? Because we're just brothers, fellowshipping, encouraging one another, being able to share our stories and what we're going through. And it's just a blessing for me to know that, you know what, I can pick up the phone and give you a call and be like, hey, bro, man, I'm going through this today, right?
Yep.
And I don't got nobody saying, man, get over this, man, da 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 da. Yeah, we might say that and playing around sometime, but at the end of the day, it's serious, and we want the best for one another.
Yep.
So let's talk about fatherhood real quick.
Yeah.
So, what has fatherhood done to you, or how has that impacted you as a man?
I would say it's definitely made me tougher, right? Because it's not about just me anymore. You got these little people you got to take care of, and for the most part, they're defenseless. Can't acknowledge most things. They can't cook for themselves. They can't go grocery shopping. They don't have money. So it's just like you got all these aspects to a child and raising them right. And for the most part, and I had put it on my Instagram the other day, it's just like, I can't lose because my children are watching me. And, you have to get to a point, or at least most parents that, raise healthy and happy children, you get to a point where there's nothing you wouldn't do for your child. So by any means, making sure there's, money and food in the house, and your kids are clothed properly, and there's a roof over their head, and they have the things that they need, so that way they can still experience childhood the way you were able to experience childhood, if not better, right? Because we always want better than what we had as parents. And just looking back on how my parents raised me, life wasn't bad at all. Like we didn't have it all, but we had enough to where we can enjoy it and we can look back on it. And it's just like, I want to make sure my children have that. So I've got to be a stronger individual. I've got to be strong-minded. I've got to be stronger financially. I've got to be stronger emotionally, and just be more vulnerable to them, and help myself understand them better, as well as help them understand me better.
Awesome. So say that quote again you put on your Instagram.
I can't lose because my children are watching.
You can't lose because your children are watching. That's an awesome quote. Just to, because especially when we're we got a job, we got a business, we got a wife, we got all these things going on, and sometimes that get lost in the sauce, right? Yeah, we're doing everything for them, but just to be able to make that type of statement and just be proactive about it on a consistent basis, because I've shared in the past with me, man, when I just realized oftentimes how I was neglecting my daughter. Mm-hmm. And she would say something like, you mean, or da, and it isn't that I'm mean, but just my attitude, not realizing she's a child, and she's especially a girl, right? And it's like, I got to be more conscious of them things as a parent, because I'm a man. First of all, I'm a man, so I don't see things as a woman would or as a little girl, but I got to keep conscious of that, so that she doesn't, get upset and cry, and because dad's not trying to be like that, but too often, that stuff happens. So that's an awesome quote, bro. You're gonna have to put that on a t-shirt. Yeah. Have to put that on a t-shirt
for sure.
So just a little bit of your bio, talking about, okay, I grew up with my parents, and then not only that, I graduated, not only that, I went to college, right? You're on a path that they set you on, right?
Yeah.
So give us one of the greatest principles. I'm going to ask, what's one of the greatest principles from mom, from dad, that helped you through that once you left the house, right?
Man, once I left the house, what's crazy is my mom told me something, and it was basically, she told me that nobody could ever disappoint her but her children. And she's like, I've got family, I've got friends. They are going to, forget my birthday. They are going to, ghost me occasionally, not show up to an event, be there in my time of need. But, she was basically saying that, like, me and your father have set you guys up for success. And that's what we expect out of you. So the only way you guys can disappoint us is if you don't follow through on the choices that you make. Not necessarily if you don't become a millionaire, or if you don't get, your degree, or if you don't, have a nice house, and, if you don't have these things. That's not what I'm saying. She basically was saying that you're going to disappoint me if you ever give up. That's what it came down to. And as funny as it is, especially as being men, it's not that my father wasn't affectionate, but he had a fine line that he trailed with affection, right? Like, my dad didn't give me like a real hug until I was like almost 25, right? But it was because he was just trying to make me this strong individual, make me and my brothers a strong individual. But with my mom saying that we can never disappoint her, and my dad saying, always to us, you're my best investment I've ever had. You're my best investment. You're my best investment. So those two things, especially around the time when that tuition bill came, they quick to remind me, like, hey, don't disappoint me, and you're my best investment, right? So those are the two things that kind of kept me afloat. And even to this day, some of the most valid things that my parents have ever told me that keeps me, my high motor, well oiled and lubricated and rolling pretty strong.
Man, that's awesome. It's funny when you said that about your mom, because I met a guy, African guy, and he told a story about how every time he left home, or him and his sibling left home, his dad would say, "Don't forget the name."
Yeah,
right? That's what he'd tell him. Don't forget the name. And basically, what that was saying is, don't forget who you are. Right. You have a responsibility to the name. And when he was telling me the story, it was just so powerful, because especially, in America, we're far removed oftentimes from things like that. But those principles are so important. So I appreciate mom and dad, right? I might not have been able to meet you, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we have to take those things, right, that we've learned from our parents, whether we had both parents or not. We have to take those principles that we've learned from them and make them our own, and then be able to pass them on to our children. So I think that's real important. So
absolutely.
As a businessman, so multi-business, and things in the works. How did you start your journey? Let's go with, how did you start your journey? So some of those things that led up, because we oftentimes people give up because it's challenging. I don't care what plan you have about how to start. You can have the best business plan, everything. It's still a challenge, because you still have to get over that hump and realize that you can do it, and that you're going to do it. So what's some of those things that helped you get over that hump, right? To say that, because you knew you can do it, because you said you were going to start a business, but what helped you get over the hump to say, you know what, it's time to do it, and this is what I got to do?
It's the opportunity, and I would say the people's words, right? Like you don't understand how much weight people's words have when they're positive. Like, sometimes you can say stuff jokingly, like, oh man, you could do whatever you want. You could be a rocket scientist if you wanted to. And it's just like, yeah, I could. But there's also those people that know you and can speak directly to the, entrepreneur, and you speak directly to the father, to you speak directly to the brother, to like speak directly to that part of you. And, the first person was, my wife, when, she just basically told me one day, she's like, you need to go ahead and just start your own gym. even though I had already been thinking that for months, you know, and it was getting to the point where it was keeping me up at night. And it was just like, you know, I was almost scared to bring the idea to her, like, hey, I kind of want to start a gym, but we kind of don't got the money, so I'm kind of gonna have to scrape from the bottom and get this going. So I'm just like, I'm not bringing this up because I don't have the pieces to this puzzle yet. So I'm not even gonna talk about the puzzle. And then she came to me like, hey, you know, I see what's going on. I see how you feeling. I'm seeing what you're doing. Like, you should just go ahead and start your own gym. So that's kind of what kickstarted the gym aspect of things, and the continuation, right? That's the hump. You know, what kept me going for the most part was seeing people that I didn't know spending money with me, making transactions with me, strangers, complete strangers, right? And it's not sad, because anybody that owns a business, depending on what it is, you know, yeah, your friends, your family, you know, your colleagues, they're gonna know what you do. But for people who don't know you, who don't know your past, and all of a sudden you put something up and you're offering a product and they're purchasing it and not thinking twice about what the cost is, they're just coming to work with you. That changes things, and you get a different thought process. Like, man, like, if I can basically sell something to strangers, I can sell it to anybody, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what got me over the hump, is realizing that it's not about who you know, it's about who you don't know that you could potentially sell to.
Awesome. So the gym was your passion. Why?
You know, so like when my wife first got pregnant in 2016, mind you, I had played team sports my whole life. So, you know, when I graduated high school and I wasn't the college athlete that I thought I could have been, and realized that I'm not as good as half these guys, you know, I'm just like, man, like, maybe that's it. Maybe, you know, rec ball is my future, and I'm gonna be a, you know, recreation league legend one day, because it's not gonna be anything official. But when I was living by myself, like, I had all the time to myself to go to the gym when I wanted to, play basketball when I wanted to. So everything was firing on all cylinders. I was still eating what I wanted to eat. And then, you know, my wife, girlfriend at the time, hit me up like, hey, we need to talk. I'm like, all right, cool. You know, come out here this weekend. Let's hang out. We hang out. We play hangman. She tell me that she's pregnant. She's like, are you sad? I'm like, no, I'm not sad. She's like, you know, things are going to have to change. So I'm like, I'm okay with that. And all the stuff that I'm thinking about that's going to have to change, I would never think that my weight was going to fluctuate the way it did because of what our, you know, days entailed. So it was just like, you know, and it wasn't her fault, because I have all, you know, right to turn down food, but we would go out to eat, and depending on how she felt, like, she probably wouldn't finish a whole meal. So then that would be my leftovers for the next day. Or we order a pizza and she probably have a few slices, but because it's in front of me, like, I didn't have any discipline. I'm just smashing whatever was in front of me. And next thing you know, I gained like 20 pounds, and, you know, started, in a sense, like, kind of losing my mojo, because I didn't have that confidence I once had. So I'm like, man, like, I gotta do something about this. So I started training. I started going to a boxing gym, and I was training every day on my lunch break. And, you know, I ended up dropping that 20 pounds quicker than I gained it, and then started, like, having muscle definition that I didn't even have when I was a teenager. So I'm just like, all right, this is nice. And, you know, so I took it to the next level and started doing, like, personal training with different trainers. And then when COVID hit, all the gyms had shut down, and I was in my garage, because I'm just like, I've already hit, you know, a good stride. Like, I don't want to stop this. So I started training in my garage during lockdown, and my neighbor hit me up like, hey, man, you mind if I come train with you tomorrow? I'm like, yeah, you know, that's cool. And then his wife came and trained with us. And then, you know, one of my old college friends, she hit me up like, hey, can we train? And then one day, an owner at a different gym in Byron Center hit me up, asked me to come out and train with him. And I'm thinking there was like a catch to it. He was like, no, but I see what you're doing. So he's like, if you ever thought about starting a gym or something, he's like, just know that outdoors work pretty well. I'm like, okay. So then I started hosting outdoor free community workouts and doing them from free to being, like, donation based. And I raised like $9,000 in donations just from holding outdoor workouts. And that's kind of when my wife came up to me like, yeah, you might want to go ahead and follow through on this thing. You might want to start your own gym. So that's kind of how everything got started.
Yeah. That's an awesome story, bro. Just you telling that story so smoothly about where you were to where you ended up, and it wasn't even about money. I think that's one of the key things, right?
That
It
was
wasn't,
the
eventually, yeah, that's okay. I know this can be a business,
Yep.
but it wasn't about that. And too often, us as entrepreneurs or people that's passionate about anything, we just lose it because we just forget about that. So let me ask you this question: as what's Dom's advice for up and coming entrepreneur, right? What would you advise them? Because a lot of times people go too fast and that causes them to fail, and so they give up. Or people, they just can't see, they know the ideas are good, they just can't see the other side, so they just give up.
What I would say a few different things. The first thing I would say is trust your gut, right? Because oftentimes, because we have so much doubt when you go into that entrepreneur phase, kind of like I did, because I knew I was afraid to ask my wife to run a business because I'm like, it don't make sense. Like, to me, it didn't make sense. But in my mind, it kind of made sense because I'm like, I can make this work if I really wanted to, but I'm not there yet. And I was afraid to make that jump. Whereas if I'd have came to her first, she probably would have said yeah, but she probably wouldn't have seen what I saw just yet, right? So trust yourself. Secondly, don't be afraid to ask for help, especially among the people that, because you're going to meet people who are going to say, hey man, yeah, you can do it, go ahead, go for it, and that's all they're going to ever say.
Yeah.
And then you got people that say, hey man, like, if you ever need some advice, let me know. And that's all they're going to say, because they're not going to beg you to give you game.
Yeah.
Like, they'll try to slow you down and hint you every now and then, but if you don't reach out and go, all right, what you want to tell me? Like, listen to those people. Listen to those people, because the person that's made the most mistakes in trying to run a business or trying to be an entrepreneur, they are probably in better positions for the future than you are as a starter, no matter what you think, because it's just like, oh, maybe I haven't, lost anything yet, and they lost this, so they're not good at it. And it's just like, no, they learn from their mistakes, and they're just trying to put you on a path, a quicker trajectory to the finish line, right? And then lastly, I'll say is study. Like, it's so many avenues to be an entrepreneur, and you don't even have to hold the title, because sometimes I don't even like the title entrepreneur, because people make it as this holy type of ordeal. And then you talk to people who understand entrepreneurship, and they're like, yeah, you're an entrepreneur. Like, that's what you are. Like, don't be shy for it. But it's like, yeah, but I also have a 9 to 5. I also, like, I've got the hustles that match up to everything. So, study, go on YouTube, go on Google. Anything that you want to do is readily available out there. And every now and then you might have to spend some money on a coach. You might have to spend some money on a mentor. But like I said, trust your gut. If it looks like it's going to be something that fits into your system, or something that's going to fit into your business plan, like, try to, right? So just listen to people that may have more knowledge than you, have a strategy for the most part, and just trust yourself. Those are the biggest things.
You heard it from Dom, the serial entrepreneur. Trust yourself, right? Trust yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for help, and study, right? Three great principles to help you engage that passion you have as an entrepreneur, or whatever it is you're seeking. Awesome. So Dom, tell the people something about yourself that people might not realize. Something interesting about you that a lot of people might not realize.
It was funny because I had been sitting back, and I'm like, man, what is something that, like, a lot of people wouldn't realize? A lot of people wouldn't realize is that I gave up an opportunity to, I would say, if I were to look back and change my decision on what I made before I came back to Grand Rapids, I gave up the opportunity to make more money, to have a more secure career, for this. And when I look back, would I change it? I wouldn't. I was working at a car dealership when I was in Toledo, and I was fresh out of college, and it was almost like they were they were like pushing me to, hey, you should learn F&I. Hey, you should learn sales. And it was just like, I could see the path they were trying to put me on. Like, 2-3 years, I, would have been a sales manager, would have been a, finance manager. And, we're talking upwards of 100, 150K a year. And I knew that in the back of my head, but I also knew what I didn't want to do. And what I didn't want to do is regret not giving myself a chance to do something else. Right. Because I think that's often what people give up life for. Like, you don't think about it that way, but people give up life for a job because the money's good and they're content with that. And my problem was I've never been content. Like, I don't even know if I have a content bone in my body. There's something that can be done for me. There's always something that can be fixed. There's always something I can be better at. So, I would say the interesting fact is, like, I kind of gave myself this this future, gave myself, where I'm at now. I gave it to myself. So,
yeah. And that's you mentioned being content, and I like one thing I always say. A lot of people view contentment as settling.
Yeah.
And one thing I learned about that is what it really is. It's even in the Bible, I think Paul said, he said, I've learned to be content in whatever situation. And what he was saying, there's life, things happen in life, right? But we have to realize who we are. If you know who you are, you're able to be content. That don't mean you're settling for something less, or, oftentimes you're preparing yourself for, just like the example you just gave, you're preparing yourself for something better.
Yeah.
I think, and it's responsibility, right? I think that's part of it too. That responsibility you had coming forward is like, you know what? I could have this now, but just the possibilities over here, right?
Yeah.
Even though you might be fearful, or like, man, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I think it goes back to what you said, right? Trust your gut.
Yeah. You
gotta trust your gut. So what would you say? Because you have you're starting another business,
Yep.
I know, and you still have and then you have one you started after the gym.
Yep.
So what's different now? Because I'm pretty sure the gym prepares you for what you're doing now. So within that, what would you say? What would you say the gym did? Because you're transitioning out of that.
Yep.
So what would you say the gym did for you to allow you to be able to say, you know what, this is something I love to do, this is something I want to do, but now it's time to transition to something else?
So kind of like going back to what we talked about in the beginning, right? And talking about that path, and then you kind of nailed it. You were just like, the whole time you're talking about this path, I never talked about money, right?
Yeah.
Because money really, I learned at a very young age that if you're good to people and you start something, you sell something, like, the money's gonna come. It's inevitable. Like, it's gonna come. Just continue to do what you're doing, and you can only spread yourself so thin, because even though we probably haven't brought it up in the podcast at this point, but my second business after the gym was a junking business. So hauling away trash, hauling away yard waste, construction debris, commercial and residential, and I would do that. Like, I still do it, like, on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. Sometimes like Wednesdays after work. But and it's funny because I take my son with me and I take my dog with me. So if it's on the weekend, I take both of the kids with me. If mom's got to work, or it just so happens that they're with me for the day, like, they just come with me. And in the beginning, I was like proud of that, and then I'm just like, no, like, they don't want to sit in my truck all day. Like, they in their mind, it's like they are content with watching YouTube Kids on the iPad while daddy does a couple of hours of work, and then we go to the trampoline park. And I'm just like, yeah, but that's not, like, my dad did that to me at times, and it wasn't no iPads out, and it was just like, it was cool to be with dad, but it was just like, I could be teaching my children so much more, or I could be giving them so much more versus having them. So to make that transition, what I realized is you got to manage your time better, right? Like, the maximum value of your time needs to be condensed into blocks, right? And the gym was spreading all my maximum time out into small pieces instead of one big block. So it's like I wake up in the morning, I'm at the gym, then I work my 9 to 5, and then I'm back at the gym. And then Tuesday, I wake up in the morning, I'm training, and I'm working my job, and then I'm at the gym. And then Wednesday, I'm waking up in the morning, I go to the gym, I work my job, and then after my job, I go do a junk job. And then I do it Thursday, and I do it Friday, and then I do it Saturday. And it's like it'll come days, like Saturday night, Sunday morning, I can't move. Like I'll get up but I'm just like, man, like what's wrong with me? And it's like I'm not 20 no more. Like, but also it was just like that high motor in me where it's just like I said, like my kids are watching, I can't lose. So they're not about to see daddy go, oh, daddy getting old, daddy back. Nope. Let's go get it, kids. Like y'all gonna get this burst of energy from me. We gonna make breakfast. We getting out this door. We're gonna go get it. It's every day. So, the gym started slowing down just a little bit, and I had to start weighing my options because, thankfully I got a good accountant, tax person. What's up, Katie? And when you look at your records and look at your statements, and you're just like, I'm not losing money, but I'm not making the amount of money that will reflect what I should be making for how much time and effort I put in.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do I do? Do I scale back when I train and have small windows, or do I try something else and see if it's more beneficial for me and I get less time into my businesses, more time at home, more time with my kids, more time with my wife, and still be able to hold that, that title of entrepreneur and be proud of it. And then it's also one of those things where the creative in me is just like, this is a cool idea. Like, try this out while you can, right? Yeah. Before you get so far in too deep of being stubborn because you want to force something to work, right? Which was the gym for me. Like, I was being stubborn for a good 2-3 months, and then finally I was just like, man, like, Dom, it's okay to say it's not working out like I wanted to. I'm not done, but I'm just done with this chapter of it right now.
Yeah.
And I think as people, we do that in life all the time. Like, we don't want to give up on the relationship, but maybe the relationship isn't right now. We don't want to give up on that old car because it's been running good for us for all the year. Maybe, go buy a new car and make that be your sidecar. Who knows? We do it all the time in life, and it's no different in business, right? Like, you got to realize when it's just time to let it go for the time being, right? And it's almost like the fairy tales. Like, if you love it, it'll come back, right? If it loves you, it'll come back. So, I'm just taking another swing at it, and I'm starting an event space because I knew I was going to be done with training at the end of this month, just because Thanksgiving's coming, Christmas is coming, and in my mind, I'm like, it's probably 3 weeks out of the next 8 weeks I will not be able to have customers in the building because I take pride in being available for my family during this time of year and during the family events and stuff like that. Like, I got PTO for work, so I'm taking the PTO off. I'm not about to take PTO off so I can just continue to do what I'm doing over here. Like, I want to be able to relax and enjoy those things. So I got a lot of time left on my lease, and in the beginning I'm just like, well, I'm gonna just get my stuff out of the space and I'm gonna market it to see if somebody will sublease it for me. And I'm like, every month that somebody hasn't subleased it, I'm coming out of money. When I can, what's the most effective thing that I can do to generate money that's not going to require too much effort? Yeah. And I'm like looking around and I'm thinking and going into, like I said, like just studying different ways to use space. Like, I literally YouTubed how to use extra space at home. And then I ran into people talking about, they rent out their living room for creatives, so people can come in, use their Wi-Fi, work on projects. Or one guy, he's got like huge monitors in his living room so people can plug up and get presentations and do Zoom interviews for bigger companies and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, maybe I'll just make this a shared space, make it an event space. And the worst case scenario is it doesn't work. Yeah. But it not working is a lot better than me just paying money every month for rent and hoping somebody else comes in and saves me. Like, I can save myself. So
exactly, especially when you look at it, maybe 3-4 events, might be all you have to too, and you're still coming out on top at the end of the day. So yeah.
It's the cool thing about it too, and I know we talked about it the other day on our dad's talk, and it was just like, you meet people by doing things, right?
Yeah.
So when people rent the event space from me and I find out like, what are you doing, they're going to tell me what they're doing with the space, because essentially they have to tell me, right? And if I find it unique, it's like, okay, who else do I know that does this? Because I can give somebody else an idea, like, hey, I just had somebody rent this space out doing exactly what you do, so it might be a good idea for us to collab. And then they bring in some more people, and I network with those people. Oh, you're an artist. Oh, you're a music producer. Oh, you take photographs, and you're just meeting these different people. And the best thing about business that you learn in college is 80% of your clientele is returning business. So you get a good network going, the people that you already know are going to spend money with you anyway. So
awesome, bro. Appreciate you, man, coming on. Couple last questions. One is, what's your favorite quote, and what was that thing that made that quote real to you? And then I'll ask you the last question and we'll wrap up.
It was it was Kanye West, as much heat as this man is getting right now. But in the Kobe commercial, well, actually it was Kobe, because Kanye West was just in the audience, but Kobe was like, "Are you the same animal but a different beast?" And I had put that on Twitter one day. I posted it on Twitter, and somebody put the Kanye West meme, like, what does that mean? And for the longest time, I just thought that quote was funny because of how Kanye West reacted to it. But then you start putting stuff into perspective, and it's like, I am the same animal, but I can be multiple beasts, right? Like I can be an entrepreneur as my animal, but I can be, my junking company could be beast number one. My event space could be beast number two. And it's like, you've got to master some of these things to be really good at it. And, when you master it, or you got to grind to get really good at it. And when you're grinding, like, that's where the real beast mode kicks in, when you're grinding to be successful. So, that was at that point, I pretty much adopted that quote and love it. And now it's on the background of my screen, the actual full context of the commercial. But being the same animal but a different beast.
Being the same animal but a different beast. I think that even also gets back, once you grasp it, right? Because you said it just sounded great, but once you grasp it, the reality of it is that, guess what? I can just, I'm a father, I'm a businessman, I'm a husband, right? You all these things, right? So, but you're still you. But you still have to act out in all these other situations. If you at work, especially if you're in corporate America, I forget the Dave Chappelle kit where keeping it real goes wrong, right? Right? You good, but then you can't be like that. You gotta in that space, you gotta be who you are, and you gotta let that stuff roll off your back.
Oh yeah.
So finally, brother, how can people reach out to you? People might have questions. Checking out what you got going on, how they get in touch with you?
So my Instagram is Motivated by Design. On Facebook you can find me as Dom Davis. For my junking business, it's MXD Junkin, and I've got a Facebook page, website coming soon. But those are pretty much the easiest ways to do it. And worst case scenario, you can shoot me an email at motivatedxdesign@gmail.com.
Awesome. My friend, my brother, Dom Davis. Appreciate you coming on the podcast. We're going to clap it up for you a little bit. You guys have been rocking with us third season. Appreciate your support. And we out.